Good morning, everyone. Sure, if people can hear me. If you can hear me, please put a thumbs up so that we um, can see that you are able to hear us. Great.
We can indeed.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a bit cloudy in Johannesburg. I'm not sure if that's what Madiba would want. I think he would want to be celebrating his birthday, in a cloudy, not in a sunny environment where, um, you can do a few activities even though it is in winter. Thank you so much for joining us once again for the Empower Her event that we are so passionate and excited for as ABSIP Women in Focus. Today we have a few speakers who are lined up to speak, who, in my view, are very exciting, and I'm looking forward to hear what they have to offer and the things that they're going to say. Um, I'm going to start by introducing our keynote speaker, who is Dr. Sane Ngidi. Dr. Sane, would you mind turning on your cameras just so that we can perhaps see you? There we go. There's Dr. Sane. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sane. Before I do introduce you, I'd just like to give a brief background about ABSIP and ABSIP Women in Focus. This year, we are actually celebrating 30 years of the existence of the Association of Black Securities and Investment Professionals, also known as ABSIP, which was established in 1995. And I think just that, having said that in its own, that the association has lasted for 30 years is truly exciting, and to be a part of it is phenomenal. It was established to address certain aspects or the lack of representation within Black professionals within the investment industry and securities. And since then, we have made an indelible mark in the industry. I think everyone knows about ABSIP and has some kind of knowledge about what ABSIP does. We're known for the events, but also I think another thing that we're also known for is the impacts that we do drive within the industry, because um, different organizations do recognize ABSIP, and they go to the extent of partnering with ABSIP, which shows that the impact really is long lasting. AWIF is a subcommittee of ABSIP, and it was established in 2006. And, the vision that AWIF has is to have a transformed and fully inclusive, ethically run financial services sector that establishes to represent Black women, professionals, and Black-owned businesses to enable sustainable growth and have and have growth in the sector, sorry, and South Africa at large. So we are very passionate as AWIF to be a part of the organization of ABSIP, and also just the initiatives that we have. And to show, we have started this program, or rather decided to have this Mandela Day initiative where we empower women um, who walk into the boardroom and are looking for employment opportunities. And we are trying to make sure that those women leave the boardroom, firstly, confident that they have secured it, but also leave an impact with the people that they would have spoken to. We are hoping that through this program and this initiative, that not only will you gain insights that you can use potentially, but also you'll gain insights that you can share with other people that surround you. Because after all, we are, a community that does share information that we do receive. So I'm going to now introduce Dr. Sane. I'm just going to read her bio briefly before I do hand over to Dr. Sane so that she can speak. Dr. Sane is a regional HR lead, Africa, at the Gates Foundation and the Society of Industrial Organization for Psychology of South Africa. Apologies. She's a seasonal internationally recognized leader in human resources. She is passionate about empowering people and driving transformation. She's an industrial psychologist dedicated to impact growth and a certified coach. She is she's created a platform for community engagement called Ngisamila that thrives in authentic leadership. Originally from Durban, she's also a mother, an avid reader, and a traveler. I hope I did mention the organization in the right way, Dr. Sane. It is Ngisamila, right? Awesome. Love what it stands for. Over to you, Dr. Sane.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tapiwa. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm going to chat to you a little bit about my career. And as I think about my career, you'll see that I've spent quite a bit of time in financial services, and I consider myself a little bit of a financial services HR person. And so when the description was happening around, oh, sorry, Tumelo, what did I say? Thank you, Tumelo. The description was happening around ABSIP and the role of ABSIP, etc., it definitely rang true in terms of my experience and understanding the value and benefit of this platform. What I'm going to do today is often when you see people, you think, how did they get there? What's their story? Like, what can I learn from their experience? And I hope to share my experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and hope that there are lessons that you can take from it that help you in your journey. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know once you can see it.
Yes, we can.
We're
We can
good.
see
We can
that.
see it.
Okay, perfect. All right. As Dumela mentioned, Gisamila is really the birth of the things that I'm really passionate about put into one place. And the Ngi represents my surname, Gidi. It's my heritage, my past, all the things that my ancestry parents that have formed the foundation of who I am. The Sa stands for Sane, myself. It's about my own identity, the things that drive me, the things that build me and give me passion and a platform to be able to help others, but also realize my full potential. And then the last is Mila, which is my daughter's second name, which is really about growth and flourishing. And it's the giving forward and building the next generation. And so in Zulu, you could read this in several ways. And I actually hadn't recognized the first way until somebody said it to me. So my intent is Ngisamila, which means I'm still thriving, I'm still growing, like there is more to me, there is more to give. But somebody did bring to the attention that it could be Ngisamila, which means I'm still standing here. It's not that one. It's the other one, which is really about growth, flourishing, etc. I'm going to share with you 7 lessons that, as I look back on my career, I think would be of value. The first is around really laying a strong foundation. And it goes back again to the first piece around my heritage, my background. I am always grounded in terms of where I come from. So I'm the last born daughter of Theodora and Lincoln. I spent most of my education in Durban at an all-girls Catholic school. And so being the last born, I think there are certain privileges and benefits that I had that my siblings certainly didn't, as my parents formed their careers, flourished, and became who they are. And so I do recognize the privilege that I have in terms of the value of education, the value of the grounding that my parents have afforded me. I think also if I think of my parents and the background they grew up in, my mother was the daughter of a teacher in Mzimkulu, it's like rural Transkei, Eastern Cape. And so growing up in that background, she had education really instilled in her. And I have pictures of my mom and her sisters like in the 70s in graduation gowns. And that's not a picture that you see often. And so instilled in me from a very young age was the fact that you work really hard and it pays off. My dad was an accountant, one of the first Black accountants. And again, this notion that like putting in the grind, putting in the effort, working really hard, using the gifts that you've been given creates a platform for opportunity. So I left Durban and I came to Wits where I studied and I did my honors, my BCom, my honors and my master's at Wits in industrial psychology. And at that point, I was at a crossroads, like not sure if I wanted to become an industrial psychologist fully or go into marketing. And when I was at that crossroads, what I did was I spoke to people in the field. So I spoke to people in marketing, and they were like, look, if you want to go the marketing route, experience is important. So go get a job. When I spoke to people in the field of industrial psychology, they said, look, practicing and becoming an industrial psychologist is important. So rather complete your master's, write your board exam. And I think for me, that was important because at the crossroads of not being sure, using the ability to speak to people in those experiences really helped me form the vision of what I wanted to do. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do my PhD, definitely a labor of love. And then later on in my career, I got the opportunity to do it. I did it at the University of Johannesburg, and I'll chat a little bit about that. But I think I used to be offended when people called me an academic, and I'd be like, no, I'm not an academic. But the reality is the desire to continuously grow, improve, stays with me. And as much as I can say I'm not going to study again, you'll probably find me studying again. I really genuinely enjoy the opportunities it creates and the stretch that I get for myself. So the first is really around grounding myself in who I am, but also making sure that I show up as my best self as the foundation of what is created for my career. As I entered the world of work, I've had the real privilege to work in some really exciting environments, and they're all very diverse. And it's in that diversity of experience that I'm able to sit where I am now and have a better view of like what really inspires me, what do I really want to do within my career. So I began my career at MultiChoice, and MultiChoice, how I got that internship was I had completed some of my master's research in the call center at MultiChoice. And at the time, my mother had a recruitment agency, and MultiChoice was one of her clients. And so that's how I'd gotten the opportunity to do my research there. I mention that because there is power in using connections, relationships to create opportunities, and networking is incredibly important. Began my career at MultiChoice. I did my internship. At the end of my internship, became an industrial psychologist, and then began the path of figuring out what do I want to do in this HR space. I spent some time as an HR generalist. I spent some time doing talent management as a specialist, and I still wasn't sure around what exactly I wanted to do. I then realized that there was this thing called organizational development that I wanted more exposure in. At the time, it was new within MultiChoice. They were still forming it. And I realized that I was not going to get the opportunity to do the work I wanted in that organization. I absolutely loved MultiChoice. I can tell you amazing things about the benefit of that internship program that I started in and why I believe so much in internship programs and the value that they bring. But it was time to move. I moved to Nedbank. And Nedbank is where I started my career in financial services. I was at Nedbank for about 6 years. I started off as an OD specialist, and then I went into a generalist role. What stands out for me at Nedbank was, firstly, when I had finished my role as an OD specialist did that for about 2 years, I was looking for a move. There was a vacancy to head up the HR team for wealth management, but I didn't think I was ready for it. I didn't think I had the capabilities for it. And so I applied for another role at Group HR. When my team found out, they said, you're not going anywhere, apply for this role. And I ended up getting that role. And I think this happens quite a bit in the career of women, in that you have the skills, capabilities for the opportunity, but you are not necessarily 100% sure that you're ready for it, and other people see your readiness. And I'll chat a little bit more about that in my studies as well. Then I left Nedbank and I had the opportunity to join RMB, which was an absolutely fantastic environment. That's why I met Darshini, who's speaking a little bit later on, and we worked together. And I think the thing that stood out for me at both Nedbank and RMB was often I found myself at leadership tables where one, I was the youngest person at the table. I'm in my late 20s, everybody else is considerably older, or I'm in my early 30s. Two, often I'm the only person of color sitting at that table. And three, I'm a woman. So the intersection of being young, Black, and female in both the leadership team and wealth management, but also the leadership team and markets at RMB, definitely is something that stands out for me as an experience that has formed how I view leadership. And so in my Nedbank days, that's when I started my PhD. And my PhD was on perceptions of African female leaders in financial services. I wanted to understand why, if I look around the table, I see women, and specifically women of color, in support functions, in HR, in ops. Why are there not more women of color in roles that are revenue generating, that lead to the CEO role? And I also wanted to hear from the women who had made it. What were their stories? How did they get to where they were? And so that we can build more success stories. I'll chat a little bit about that when I talk about my research. Left R&B. I was in this place where I'd left corporate, trying to figure out my next. And I went to a SIOPSA event, which is the society that I'm a part of. And I met somebody there and they spoke to me about consulting. And that began my journey into like, what could consulting look like? I joined Hydrogen and Struggles and got to do some really exciting work, working with boards, assessing their effectiveness, working with leadership teams across the Middle East and Europe, assessing executives, helping them build their careers. That's where I kind of cut my teeth into coaching. I started doing executive coaching and I realized this is something that I'm like really passionate about, especially around coaching women. And that's also where I got insights into philanthropy, as Hydra did a lot of selection for philanthropies, and I got pulled in to specifically work around the MasterCard Foundation to come and onboard executives as they were hired. And that kind of opened up my world to this thing around philanthropies. And then I saw an opportunity at the Gates Foundation and I joined, and that's where I am now. And so very different experiences in terms of the actual environments that I've been in. Absolutely love the work that I do at Gates. I look after HR for Africa. And it's been an opportunity to, when I joined, there were 60 employees in 3 countries. Now there's 180 employees and we're in 5 countries. And just being in a space to be able to influence really impactful work, but also watch the business grow. I come back to our experiences count. When I say our experiences count, it goes back to my research, which is the experiences of women, the experiences of women of color specifically, and the influence that we can have in financial services. My takeaways that I would like to leave you with to think about is when I spoke to the women who had made it, I interviewed 10 women who were either at one level below CEO or were divisional executives. The things that stood out for me were, one, a lot of them had found themselves in the same situation I described, where they were kind of itching for their next, but they didn't think that they were ready for the opportunities that were at the next level, or some of them might not have even felt like that. And they had a mentor or a sponsor or a coach, somebody who was with them in their journey, who helped push them along and sometimes push them along when they were not ready to. And so I really believe in the importance of having sponsors within the work environment, but also as for your own personal development, thinking around like, who's my mentor, who's my coach, what's in my circle. The other thing that really stood out for me is there were so few of them across these organizations, but they were not connected to each other. And I often think around like how the boys club is so well connected. And so to what extent as women do we use networks to enable us and to give each other opportunities? As much as things are thriving, you are a human being and you bring your human side to the workplace as well. And you hold this dichotomy of I want to be great, I want to do great work, but life doesn't always work out as planned. We all need a little help, and that's okay. And I never thought of myself as somebody who would ask for help, but I found myself in a situation where I needed to ask for help. And so I got married in 2015, had my daughter. By 2019, I was separated in the middle of a divorce. In 2015, through my while I was getting married during that time, my mom was distant, very not present, and I found out that she had Alzheimer's and dementia. And so I really found myself in a place where I was not coping, and I had to ask for help at work. 2021, 2022 was possibly the worst year of my life. December 2021, my dad passed away. By February, my aunt, his sister passed away. By April, my uncle, his brother had passed away. And then in September 2022, my mom passed away. And so I really was at the lowest I've ever been. And I had to put my hand up and say, I'm not okay. And I think that we need to realize that human beings are at work. And when you need help, ask for help. You're not alone. Prioritize what counts. When my life was falling apart, I went back to my roots. I went back to my siblings who were there and supported me. I remembered who I was doing this for, my daughter, and that I had to show up for her. And I became the most traditional person, and I'm not a traditional person. And you see me there wearing this panda. But I think I needed to be grounded in, like, when everything else was falling apart, what grounded me? My family, my daughter, my heritage. That's what held me together. And then, despite it all, find time for what brings you joy. I count myself really blessed that my career is an amalgamation of all the things I love. So I have an amazing job, which I absolutely love. I've had the opportunity to build the Ngisamila platform. It's still new. I had 2 years where I just sat looking at it, not knowing what it was. I launched it at the end of last year. I still don't know 100% what it is, but it's a birthplace of the things I enjoy. I'm the president for SIOPSA from 1 August, which is the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology of South Africa. I did my coaching and I lecture. And so there's a multifaceted part of you. And so just give space for all the different parts of you. And then the last is grow, adapt, learn, reinvent. The reality is things aren't going to work out the way that you think they will. I give these examples because one of the interns that I ended up hiring, she reached out to me on LinkedIn. She said, you're probably like, I don't know, the 100th person I'm messaging. I can't find a job. I said, let's have coffee. She ended up getting a job. So when things don't work out, when you're not getting opportunities, reach out, try to find help. People are there willing to help. And I guess to end it all off on this Mandela Day, I thought I'd end off with a quote from Mandela, which is, freedom cannot be achieved unless women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. I really believe in the power of platforms like this to create opportunities for us to share and learn and lift each other up. I hope you've gotten some learnings from my career, and I look forward to hearing more from the speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sane. That really was insightful, loaded. But also I love the personal touch and the relatability, because we do experience challenges as women, and sometimes they are internal and sometimes they are external. But really, it is important to just keep focus, keep remembering why you're doing this. I would just like to mention that we are also going to give people the opportunity to ask Dr. Sane and all our speakers questions towards the end. So, Dr. Sane, please stay online. I'm sure a few ladies have questions for you. Another thing that I would like to mention is that we would like for you to please use our hashtags for the day. If you are taking pictures, if you are going to share the information that you've gained from the session, please do remember to mention us and use the hashtags that we're using for today. Our next speaker is Ati. I would like for her to also please um, show herself. Atimbete, there we go. Thank you so much.
Hi,
That's our
good.
next speaker. I'm going to introduce you. Ati has quite a long bio, which I hope to have one
Fantastic.
day. But
Fantastic.
I am going to mention, a few things there. IT is a catalytic force in the world of people and possibilities. She's the founder and the head of Trans-Era Solutions, a South African, a proudly South African Black female-owned people development consultancy. Her Under her leadership, Trans-Era is redefining how organizations attract, develop, and retain talent, specializing in DEI strategy, executive search, inclusive recruitment, graduate development, and human-centered HR tech. She is currently a member of the EY Winning Women EMEIA class of 2004, also a G20 MPower South Africa advocate, which is scaling women owned enterprises across Africa, and a recent member of the BRICS Women Business Alliance South Africa, whether it's in advising in boardrooms, headhunting mavericks and polymaths, or facilitating transformational dialogue. Ati brings fire, depth, and fierce intentionality to every space she enters. And I know we're going to experience that this morning. Over to you, Ati.
Thank you so much, Dumelo, and good morning to everybody that is connected on here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ABSIP. I don't know what's behind the back of my hair. Yeah. So when you guys reached out and asked us to prepare in 5 minutes, I was like, how do you prepare? And I've got verbal diarrhea. So I'm going to try to do justice just to talk about today in terms of navigating the labor market and also workplace readiness. As Dumelo has introduced me, I run a people development consultancy around diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we do executive search, board placements, recruitment end to end, including graduate and leadership program recruitments and onboarding. And I've been in the game for the past 10 years. I'm going to be finishing actually 10 years next year, February. And in those 10 years, I must say that I've seen a lot, particularly from a candidate side of things or the world. And what I've seen a lot, particularly with the youth or the fresh raw talent in South Africa, it's like they're really committing a suicide. And I think one of the reasons that makes me very excited about this place is because also I never had any guidance when I started out in corporate. I didn't know what I was doing, but I thank God that one thing I had a very flamboyant personality, and I spoke a lot, which made me stand out in rooms. And so I was always identified for opportunities in terms of promotions. And I worked with a headhunting agency. Whenever opportunities came, she would always reach out, Ati, I've got an exciting project. Are you on the market? And let's move. And I want to speak particularly from the angle of, because I understand we have a lot of graduates that are in the room today and are looking to enter into the market, or maybe you've just transitioned, left a previous job and looking for a new opportunity. And what I want to talk on today is your CV, which I always say that your CV is your business card. It's what makes the world recognized, take attention of who you are. And it starts with the profile that you present to the world. And what we've found is that a lot of people go with trends that you need a 2-page or a 1-page CV. And let's say, for instance, you are an executive and you have about copious amounts of years being in the labor market, and then trying to compress that experience into 2-page, which does a disservice in terms of who you are. So if you're starting out entering the market, yes, a 1-page CV definitely does make sense, where you get to highlight your demographics, a little bit of a bio, a synopsis on who you are. And fortunately, today we're living in a world of tech and where there's AI, which helps to enhance and amplify what you've written so that it comes across professionally as well. Also, it's very important in terms of, like, if you're starting off, mention the qualifications, the high schools, any achievements that you've done in your tenure while at high school, So whether you're a captain of netball, participant playing in netball team, first team at school, leadership within SRC when you're at varsity, things that you were appointed for or selected for in terms of programs at varsity, do mention that to ensure that you build up something that is worth reading. Because I always say that your CV is like a menu. You're entering into a restaurant and I want an a la carte, like a, full 5-course meal. And from the time that I touch your profile, it should give me an appetizer and make me immediately want to get in contact with you. And remember, when you are applying, there's tons and tons of people that are on the market that are looking for opportunities that are also applying. And one of the things that is going to distinguish you from everybody else in the market and who's applying is the detail on your profile. So don't type or put your CV together according to the trends, but according to what you feel will set you apart from everybody else. And especially when you're starting off, mention everything besides hobbies. Don't put hobbies, guys. And if you can, unfortunately, the world of corporate is biased. Please do include a headshot image of yourself. There's a lot of places today that takes a lot of pictures, whether you go into a mall, and I believe some people have got like good access to cameras, phone cameras that take good picture qualities. Just a headshot image of yourself in a background that's a background that's not busy, that you can attach to your profile at the beginning with a little bio of who you are, your age, details, location, because also we need to know where you're applying from. And I always tell candidates that we are not sangomas. We are not going to throw bones in the air to figure out how old are you or where are you based, particularly for leadership programs where they're specific and they want people of certain age demographics. And also from an equity point of view, they are after a particular race to meet with with employment equity requirements. Secondly, I want to talk about your digital presence. Also, it's important as well, if you are on the market, make sure that you are visible on the job portals. We've got portals in South Africa today, Career 24, Career Junction, your PNets, big one, of course, LinkedIn. And this is where us recruiters, headhunters, including hiring managers, we source talent from. As Sane had mentioned earlier on, a candidate reach out to her directly on a LinkedIn page. And that's where you need to be in terms of digital presence, visibility, because it goes to also show us immediately I get your CV. Next phase I'm going to look into is your LinkedIn profile. What are you doing? What are you communicating out there? And how you present your LinkedIn profile. You must mirror what is on your CV, mirror it with your LinkedIn profile. They should look the same and nothing should be different, including dates, the details, the descriptions in terms of the duties that you've carried out. Particularly going back on your CV as well, I always say do not be modest when it comes to your CV. Give it the blows and whistles. If you're buying a Toyota Corolla here, or if it's a Mercedes Benz, give me the blows and the whistles. I want to know the projects, the project values, the timelines. I want to see, career highlights and achievements, things that you were involved in the business, that you were very instrumental in bringing change. And particularly for your fraternity in terms of finance, you work with different types of tools, applications. Do highlight the packages that you work on the CV. Another thing that also I want to highlight as well, when you are on the market, I always say that job hunting is a science. There's an art to it. You don't just wake up haphazardly like we in the Wild West or in the bushes like the Kalahari and you decide today I want to apply. And that's why we have a lot of people that are very despondent and discouraged because they treat job hunting like it's a sporadic event. You have to be intentional about your job, your career path. Even though it may be non-linear and not straightforward, but there's a clarity that you need to have. I always say to candidates, map up your top 10 companies. Who are the next top 10 people that you want to go work for? Where do you see yourself next? Then in that way, you streamline, you are more targeted when approaching the job market than rather haphazardly approaching the market. You know, if you're going to target, for instance, let's say Jägermeister or a Red Bull or a Marriott International, you are working towards that. They form part of your top 10. If it's the FMCG sector and you want to come out of the financial services, the insurance, the investment or wealth banking space, then you start start targeting those particular company in the specific sector and name them. It's like you're creating a vision board. And trust me, once you're clear, you find that as people talk about the universe, things tend to start responding. You begin to see opportunities around the companies that you've highlighted that you want to work for. They begin to show opportunities out there for you, because this thing also is also energetic. And coming to energetic as well, I wanted to mention thing around your energy as well, because what we also find as headhunters, once we've seen your CV and we're excited, we want to take you through the process. It's that first phone call when I reach out to you. If you're going to say, and I'm like, hi, this is Ati from Transair Solutions. I recently got your application for the finance director role. And you're like, oh, okay, hi, Ati. Already for me, that's my indicator not to proceed with you further. Because if that's the way you are going to engage with me, it means that it's the same energy that you're going to bring when you're being interviewed with the client. So if you are actively on the market, your attitude, your energy needs to level up and come up into the next level, because you can't come as depressed. We know people are going through the most, but also there's a positivity that is really required, a voltage and a consummating energy that is required for you to really stand out from everybody else in the market. So exciting energy, attitude is very important. Do not be lukewarm when you are on the market. What I've found with A player plus candidates, they are very aggressive, they are very switched on, they are very intentional about their career. They don't just wake up and decide, oh, I'm just going to apply for everything. Don't apply for what is not applicable for you. And secondly, make sure when you are applying, your CV has to completely adjust. Mirror your CV to what the job spec is requiring, especially the first three components in the job description. That is what you need to speak into on your CV. So your CV has to continuously evolve. You can't keep using the same CV over and over. Little tweaks that are required to make sure that you speak, because remember, you're dealing with ATSs, the application tracking systems, and also maybe your CV will go to a junior administrator who knows nothing about what she's looking for, but all she needs to see are keywords on the CV, and make sure the keywords are on there. And that's a doorway or an entryway for you into that. And also, energy is important because it also signals to your subconscious and your conscious that you are the prize and you are ready for this. It needs to come from you guys. And unfortunately, we can't help you, especially when you're starting. Fortunately, candidates that deal with us is that I coach you, I see the gaps before you even see my clients. And if you can, as Samke had mentioned earlier on, if you've got a mentor, if you've got somebody that you can trust and that you can go and practice interview skills, make sure that you do that. I remember when I was younger, I used to stand in front of the mirror, and I know it sounds delulu and crazy. Talk to yourself in the mirror, practice in terms of how you are going to sound. And I see Timelo is coming back online. My time is my time is almost finished. I'm going to say that life rewards those who are intoxicated with purpose. Be intoxicated with your career. This is your life that we're talking about, and you need to take responsibility for. And also how you show up in these interviews. Guys, don't dress in tracksuits and sloppy stuff. Do power dressing. I don't know if you've watched Suits or Selling Sunset. It's one of the real estate shows that I really love. They're very pristine, well put together, beautiful pitch perfume, and also voice and communication. No one is going to know that you are a star and you are brilliant if you don't tell us. Unfortunately, and like I said, I don't throw bones. I'm not a clairvoyant. You need to tell the world who you are, and that is your personal branding and your stamp, and make sure that, and I can tell you, I wish I had more time, but these are the tools that are going to make you stand out from everybody else, and you're going to lock it in and land that job. And you'll come back and thank me and look for me in LinkedIn. And I'm happy to discuss further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ati. Very passionate, like I said in her bio, while I was introducing her rather. And she brought the fire. Thank you very much. I think I have a few questions towards the end. I'm definitely going to follow you on the socials, and I hope that you do also respond to us when we do DM you for more questions and tips and tricks of how we can actually land the actual job.
I don't
There's an
ghost
article.
you. I don't
Okay.
ghost. So one thing, even if I can't help you, I'm happy to guide. I
Yeah,
don't ghost people because personally I don't like to be ghosted. So same energy, I give the same energy back.
amazing. There is a quote that actually just resonated with me, or that an article rather, that had a quote, right? That resonated with what you actually just said, right? It said she negotiated like she needed the job. He negotiated like the job needed him. Guess who got the job? IT is just reminding us to negotiate, like, very passionately, speak, have people hear you, make the impact, leave the boardroom with nothing unsaid. Thank you very much, Ati. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is Dashni Padiachi, and I would like for her to also please just switch on her camera so we can see her. Maybe I'm not.
I am
Okay,
on. Can you see me?
not yet. Not amazing. There we go. Thank you so much, Dashni. I would like to just read your bio, just introduce you while you get ready to speak to us. I'm sure you've also got a mouthful to say, and I'm looking forward to hear. Dashni Padiachi is a global award-winning people and culture in finance executive with over 20 years experience in banking. A chartered accountant by profession, she began her career in investment banking, in group treasury and global markets, affording her the opportunity to have strong knowledge in financial instruments, capital regulation, and reporting. Her passion for human development and culture resulted in being offered the opportunity to lead the DEIB and well-being, resulting in her career path change. She is driven by data that translates and people centered solutions. Dashni is an executive coach with a master's in leadership coaching, graduated cum laude. She is a board member of Play Africa, an NGO advancing STEM skills in playing underprivileged areas in South Africa. She has extensive professional speaking experience, including global platforms in the UN Women. Her career is a testament to the power of the passion is her career is a testament to the power of passion intertwined with purpose. She's an avid reader, a traveler, lifelong learner, believing that life is best enjoyed with a glass of Pont Neo. I hope I said that right.
Pinot
Pinot
Noir.
Noir. Pinot Noir. There, thank you. Over to you, Dashni.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much to ABSIP for having us here today. I don't know how you follow the energy of the Chief Fire Igniter, but I'm going to try anyway. And I must echo her sentiments around trying to put it all into 5 minutes. But I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a conversation for all of us. I'm also really glad that I went third because some of the themes that Sane and Ati spoke about are what's resonated with me as well. And so I thought today, what are the things that I could tell you in 5 minutes that have been most impactful in my career and what I've seen from working with so many women across my over 20 years of experience now. So one of the first things that I really want to speak about this morning is the concepts of sponsorship and mentorship. And Dr. Sane spoke about it earlier as well briefly. I think as women, especially when we earlier in our careers, we often get told that what we need is mentorship. And it's true that we do need mentors in our careers. What mentors give us is the benefit of their experience. We can ask them questions, but all they do is really that, the benefit of their experience. What women really need in their careers to progress is sponsorship. And with sponsorship, You can't go up to a sponsor and say, can you be my sponsor? What sponsors do are they the people that are going to say your names in the rooms when you're not around. They're going to be the ones that advocate for you. And so there's a lot of research around sponsorship, but there's not a lot that talks about in order to have a sponsor, you must be sponsorable because somebody is putting their name against yours, somebody is vouching for you. And in order to be sponsorable, you've got to show up. You've got to make yourself sponsorable. You have to be seen. That brings me to my next point around something that's called, in the workplace, it's called the tiara syndrome. And many of us as females are guilty of that, especially when we're younger in our careers. So when we're in school, we're told that if we put our heads down, if we work really hard, if we get the good grades, we will be successful. And that is very true. We are successful, we come top in our classes, we do really well academically, we get into universities and we get our jobs. But nobody tells you that in the workplace, the rules are different. So, yes, hard work is going to get you noticed, but it's only going to get you noticed up until a point. You have to be able to lift your head up and build your network as well. You have to be seen in the workplace. And that doesn't just mean sitting behind your desk or your laptop or just working from home all the time. You have to be there so that people can see you, so that when that great project comes up or the next role comes up, you are top of mind for people. And sometimes that does mean moving out of our comfort zones as well. It means networking or being part of social events or putting your hand up for things that are out of your comfort zone. But that's exactly what you need to do, in addition to having a great work ethic and for being the person that your manager can rely on as well. The third thing I want to talk about today is what I've mentioned earlier around building your network. And this is something I think I started doing early in my career, but not quite conscious about it. And I wish I had been a lot, I wish I knew the importance of a network that early in my career. And I think as women, what we often do is we say our network is our circle of friends. And that's not completely true. So, your circle of friends can be a part of your network, but your network can't just be your circle of friends. I think it was Ati who earlier said, or was it Dr. Sane that said you need different people for different things in your career. And that's part of building up your network as well. Not everybody in your network is somebody that you need to have a friendship with. Professional relationships and friendships are two different things. And I think as women, we shy away from picking up the phone to somebody who we might have met only once. Or like Ati said, for that role that you need, or Dr. Sane said, for that role that you need, we shy away from calling on the people in our networks. We say, oh, I've only met them once. Why would they take my call? Or, we're not friends. We don't have a relationship. Why would they take our call? But the truth is that males do that in their professional relationships. They're not afraid to pick up the phone to somebody that they met years ago, once off, whom they now need professionally. And I really think that as women, we need to get better at doing that. So, yes, we have our friends, we have our personal relationships, but building up our professional networks is a different skill set that we need as well. And then the last thing that I want to say is that it's really important to find your people and find your tribe. Find the ones that remind you of your value when even you forget it sometimes. And I see Tumelo's back on, and I will stop there. But again, reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I've actually written a whole piece around this, so you can get more detail, or you're welcome to contact me.
Yes, You're also welcome to join the table of 12 when
Yes, please
when we
do
have the
that.
next one. I also did not mention, which I think I should have, that Dashni is the founder of the Table of 12, and having been part of that experience, I mean, I can tell you it's a community. It's a community of women who empower each other, share articles, and have, you know, a lot to share with each other. So there's a lot of knowledge that goes around there, and I love what um, Table of 12 stands for, and I love what you've just said on all the points. You know, men are very intentional. And I think sometimes, you know, we get caught in our emotions. And thank you for reminding us that it's okay to reach out to people who we've only spoken to once and, you know, from a very long time ago. Thank you very much, Darshni. I do hope that you are going to stay for later on when people do have questions. Just a reminder that our hashtags have been shared in this specific group chat, um, and that you can also follow us on social media. We are on LinkedIn. We are also on Instagram. Please do follow us. Please do tag us when you do speak on and share about this event. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Rumbi. While you turn your camera on, Rumbi, I would like to read your bio. Rumbi is the Chief Operating Officer of Mobile Wallets in Sasai FinTech. I'd like to start again, please. Rumbi is a Chief Operating Officer for mobile wallets at Sasai FinTech, focusing on developing a social payment platform. She serves as a board member for Time Bank, one of the biggest growing digital banks in Africa. Past experiences include being an executive director in sub-Saharan Africa debt capitalist markets at JP Morgan, where she participated in raising over 35 billion worth of capital for blue chip or corporates and governments across Africa. She's a self-published author with 2 books with the titles are Your Guide to Adulting, the next book is The Gen Z Pocket for Teenage Girls. Wow, I'd like to read that. Thank you so much for joining us, Rumbi. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Jamila. So in the time that we have together, I'd like to just talk about some of the themes that help us to integrate all of what we've heard from Dr. Sane, from Ati, and from Darshni. For me, especially as I've been reflecting on what career success looks like, Jamila mentioned that I've written 2 books, and when you go through a writing process, especially one that was geared towards helping young people understand how to position their careers, how to sustain, how to start, sustain, and end well in all of the things we do, you start to realize a few themes. And for me, the foundation of integrating all of what we've talked about is self-awareness. You know, before you write a CV, before you show up at an interview, you have to be deeply self-aware of what it is that you're good at, how it is that you want to present yourself to the world. Not everyone is a big talker. Not everyone comes with big energy, and that's okay. But once you know where you stand on a spectrum of different things, whether it's how you like to speak, the kinds of language you like to use, even the way you like to dress, all of these things, being self-aware allows you to be able to tailor your strategy into a manner that's going to be effective for any room you walk into. I believe that in as much as we can have industry environments that point us towards certain things. So for example, I was in investment banking, typically a very aggressive environment. I had to ask myself, do I want to match the energy of this environment? Or do I want to make sure that in as much as I know that this is how other people conduct themselves, that I have a strategy for being effective there? And by doing that, I was able to sustain a 12-year career in an environment that I didn't allow to change me. I was aware, but I was still able to stay true to myself, which is basically not being aggressive, but leading with a style which was still collaborative, still very positive despite what the environment said. So if you're not aware of that, you won't be able to identify what it is in your career experience that you're struggling with. Is it that you don't know how to articulate your value, or you don't understand why your colleagues don't receive you with the level of respect that the environment might call for? So for me, the beginning of everything is self-awareness, to say, how do you read your needs and how do you interpret the environment that you're in and navigate appropriately? And then secondly, I'd like to talk about a personal brand, because again, by the time you're showing up for an interview, by the time you're writing a CV, you have to understand what you are offering the market. And for many of us who are in financial services, we tend to rely on the analytical side. And that is important, but your personal brand is more about whether you can technically do the job. All of us have a personal brand, whether we're shaping it intentionally or not. And so because of that, it is important that we all rise up to the challenge of being able to positively curate how we want people to experience us and perceive us. I think the tricky thing about social media nowadays is that we're very busy with curating how we look, that we might not always pay attention to how people experience us. Anyone who's been in the workplace for 2, 3 years has had some experiences now where they've seen a big range of managerial styles. And I hope you're not in a position where you are exposed to toxic bosses, but it is an example where you can learn from the people around you to say, if that person was really self-aware, do they know that they're being perceived as a bully? Do they know that they're being perceived negatively? Are they aware that their negative behavior is actually part of their brand? I often believe that if people were to stop and assess their behavior, they might not continue some of the behaviors that they do perpetuate. So as you navigate corporate, these are the reasons why I'm encouraging you to pay attention not only to how you look, how you present on LinkedIn, whether you're getting all the likes. You have to pay attention to how you are experienced, because now when we're looking at team dynamics and when you're now preparing for the next promotion, how you are experienced within your organization will determine part of whether you'll be selected for leadership positions. If you're not sure about what your personal brand represents, I'd like you to do a little exercise where you write down what you think your top 3 strengths are, but also ask another 5 people in your circle, not just your friends, by the way, people who might be colleagues, people who are associated with you. Ask them what they think your top 3 strengths are. Compare that with your own list, because again, there's a difference between what you think you're good at, or sometimes there can be a difference between what you think you're good at and how other people receive you. And when you combine these things, when you combine these keywords, have a reflection on whether you want to take those 3 strengths as the items that you highlight in your personal brand. We have to oftentimes override how we were trained in school to be all-rounders. Most popular brands, actually every popular brand that I can think of, they're not all-rounders. They maximize their strengths and they manage their weaknesses. And I'd encourage you to do the same thing in your career. Identify what you are uniquely good at, press in on that, and use that not only to thrive in the career that you have now, but to position you for the career that you want to go into next. I'd like to just finish off on emotional intelligence, because having been self-aware, having been aware of the brand that you project into different spaces, the reality is that the environments that we're in make us experience a lot of challenges, especially if you're in a high pressure environment. It's very important that you look after your mental health as you navigate corporate, because again, you don't want to cut your career path short because you aren't able to rise to either the increasing pressure that comes with different jobs. Yes, we like new opportunities, but if you're being overwhelmed in the process, then some of these situations are not worth accelerating too quickly into. So for me, when it comes to the emotional intelligence of the roles we take on, be aware of whether the right growth opportunity is coming when you have the capacity to take it on. We all go through a lot of personal things, and you wouldn't want a scenario where you're taking on a big role at a time when it's not actually personally expedient for you, because it tends to damage your personal brand if you've been given a job that you ultimately do not perform well in. It's okay to be able to pace yourself and to make sure that you are picking the right opportunity that you need. It also makes sure that if you have a mentor or a sponsor, they are that they can trust that when they give you an opportunity, you are well set up to take it forward. I'd like to just say that for a lot of us who are planning not only the current role but the next role, it's important that we allow ourselves to invest in the continuous development before we get there. Right? Oftentimes we care so much about upskilling in the moment, but think about what your next role is. Think about what you need to know to perform well in it. And before you get there, allow the growth curve to begin so that when the pressure comes, yes, I think it will always feel different once you're in the role, but because you've been preparing for a period of time beforehand, it starts to diffuse some of that pressure. So I'll pause there. I hope we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A because these are important topics to make sure that we can last in the corporate space.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Rumbi. I've already got my pen and paper with the exercise. Just want to show you that, I've got my notebook right here and I'm writing down my strengths, and I'm going to reach out to a few people to also just ask them to also just note that so that I can also know and take into consideration what you've said. Thank you so much. I would like to um, open the floor for questions and provide the speakers an opportunity to also just provide answers. If it is okay with you, I'd like for all our speakers to please have their cameras on so that perhaps, if you're not, if you don't remember who the name was, but you'll remember the face because, faces do make an impression. And then we'll be able to answer questions. And I would like to start with someone who's already asked if they can ask a question. I think her name was Christina. Christina, I'd like for you to please ask your question. There we go. Thank you so much. Okay, I don't think she's able to speak. Perhaps you can type. While she's typing, Rumbi, you did say that you were going to give away a book or two, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I'm hoping we get some very bold questions that
Yes.
challenge us. So yes, those
Yes.
are available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we will be giving those
Jamila, I
books.
think the mics are disabled. That's why
Okay.
they might not
Okay.
be. So someone's going to have to enable a mic.
No problem. I'll ask the team in the background to please enable the mics. Tapiwa and Bugiwe, please assist us. While we wait, I'd just like to also encourage people to post on Instagram and LinkedIn and use the hashtags. And maybe even one of the books can be given to a person that has posted on the socials, mentioned, the event and, the kind of things that they've learned so far. I do see that we do have, quite a few people raising their hands, but I also do note that you won't be able to speak at the moment. Please just give me a second just to confirm with the team if we're able to enable mics so that people are able to speak. Thank you. Okay, so while we work on that, we do have a question. Thank you for your patience. Can we please, yes, please, Leah, you can type your questions in the chat box so long while we do try and sort out the mics. I'll read the first question, and perhaps we can, whoever that feels that they can take the question, please do answer. The first one is for anyone. Um, how to best navigate strong and dominant female leaders that are overpowering? That's an interesting question. Ati, would you like to take that one? I see you are laughing, so maybe you can resonate, or maybe you have a few things to say.
I think Dashni is the best person to answer this.
Okay.
I'm just I'm laughing because
Why? Because I
and I'm
worked with Dr. Sane.
and
No,
no
I thought Dash because I know she's got examples.
and Dash is because she's in corporate, both you and Sane, and these are the things that you get to see. But for me, it's people coming to me afterwards, after the
Yeah.
frustration,
Yeah,
and I'm laughing because it's a continuous occurrence
that's true.
from my world, and particularly the impact as well that it has on candidates from a mental capacity. um it's actually painful. Don't mind me laughing. I like to giggle. I think it's just a crazy and just a madness in me. But it's a painful thing to see women leaving opportunities, even men, as a result because of alpha females. And it's one thing that I personally pray about, and I'm very conscious that in my rising, may I not become an alpha female that ends up being a threat, and a destroyer of those also who are in the corporate spaces that I meet. So there's a level of consciousness in terms of how to navigate that I'd like to really hand over, because for me, then I help people to transit such environments by finding opportunities for them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. Sorry, Ati. Would you like to tackle that one, Dashni? How do we handle
Um,
people who have strong personalities? That's how they perceive it. They just say, no, it's not. I just have a strong personality.
so I think this question is complex, or without knowing the context around it. So what I want to say is that without knowing, knowing the situation and knowing the other person and knowing the leader you're talking about, to really look at, is your expectation because she's a female different? Would you say the same if you were experiencing the same from a male leader? Do we just naturally expect female leaders to lead differently to the males, and then we are disappointed when we don't get the same support because they are female?
Mm,
What I would say though is it's also hard when you're at different levels in your career. I think the workplace makes it really hard because what happens is, because there's so few females in leadership positions, females think that the competition is each other, when
mm,
actually the real competition is all around us. And we should be supporting each other, but it doesn't always happen like that. There's so
mm,
much of pressure on a female leader. Like Dr. Sane said, sometimes you are the only one sitting representing all females everywhere, forever. And
yeah.
that's a lot of pressure on the female leader as well. But like I said, it's maybe looking at, am I saying this just because she's female and I am expecting something different, or is there
Mm,
some real toxicity there?
okay. Thank you very much, Dashni. I think perhaps if you have further questions, Norma, you can perhaps direct the question to Dashni, and she will, assist you in answering the question if you can provide a little bit more context, like you said, Dashni. I'll read the next question. It says, how can we better communicate our value rather, in interviews when we don't yet have the years of experience?
I can take that one.
Okay, thank you,
Or,
Rumbi.
or at least start, and then I see Ati also wants to come in. So a lot of times, so I'm looking at this in terms of when I was applying for jobs, and then also when I was on the other side interviewing talent. The years of experience, yes, they matter, but chances are they have made it clear that they're looking for a junior manager or a junior resource of some level, right? So they don't expect you to have a decade under your belt, right? So it's important that you are able to, and so I mentioned self-awareness at the very beginning. You have to understand what is the thing that you do well. If you don't have years of experience, Are you good at actually looking at a company's financial report, understanding the strategy, and going into the interview and leading that discussion around your strengths? So if you, and I actually saw someone did this very well on LinkedIn, they actually want a job at Woolworths. So what they did was to do a case study of the Woolworths app and see where the problems are in the tech stack, right? They looked at, there's a problem with loyalty, there's a problem with XYZ. And instead of the conversation now being around, you've only been doing this for 2 years, the conversation is now around the merit of their ideas. So if you know that you are someone who's a strategic thinker, someone who can break down business models, take the conversation there. Interviews aren't just about you going in there to respond to their questions. If you go into an interview with a game plan, you can actually very strategically shift it into the territory where you shine. And that's why it's also a good idea when you're going into an interview, check who's going to be interviewing you. Read a little bit about their background, show up early, so that when you're in the lobby waiting, you start the conversation to say, oh, you know what, I just read your financial results, or I just read this new product launch that you did. I'd love to be able to talk a little bit more about that in the interview. And then you are already steering it into the zones where you know that you can demonstrate how good you are, as opposed to being inhibited by years of experience that you can't manufacture, right? But you certainly can steer it towards the areas where you shine. So and that's why Ati was also talking about, pick the kinds of companies where you want to work, because if there is value, if there is passion around those companies, you should want to be able to do that research. That makes it easier to, to lead with idea generation in the interview.
All right. Thank you so much, Rumbi. I'll move on to the next one just in the interest of time. The next one says, how do you make networking feel more authentic instead of transactional?
I'll take a stab at this one.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's often easier for extroverted people to be perceived as like networking will be easier. I say that because one might say I'm an extroverted individual. And so the building of relationships, the building of connections, the speaking to people comes a little bit easier. It might not come easily to you. And so I think it's about, again, being prepared for what that networking looks like. So if you're going to a particular event, are you prepared around what are one or two questions or things that you might want to know about? Are you sure about what your personal elevator pitch is or how you can introduce yourself? I went to a training session 2 weeks back, and what Nozipo had done she had these really cool conversation starters, so that if you are uncomfortable starting a conversation, you were able to do that. The second thing is, I encourage everybody, find platforms like ABSIP, find other communities of people who have got like-minded interests, join those events, etc., build your networks there. And then perhaps the last piece I will give is, don't take for granted the social media platforms. We've spoken about that before. Leverage those platforms, follow people that you like, comment on different things, put out interesting content, reach out to people. We're in a very tech-enabled environment. It doesn't have to be the person next to you. So I think planning, knowing what you want, going for it, and making sure that you are proactive in how you do it is important.
Okay. Staying with you, Sane, Dr. Sane, sorry. There's a question actually directed to you. It says, Dr. Sane Ngeti shared that she usually found herself in leadership tables where she was the youngest and the only Black female. Did she ever experience imposter syndrome? And if so, how did she deal with it?
Every single day, even today. Most certainly. I think the example I gave was at Nedbank. I mean, when I got approached to apply for the head of HR role, I had seen the prior head of HR. And so in my mind, I was like, I'm not Carla. And that was true. I was never going to be Carla. I was never going to show up as a leader like her. And I think it's really about knowing what your strengths are. I think also being willing to take the risk, right? And that can feel very daunting. Like, even when you're not ready, take the risk, and then putting together the support structures around you. I often get asked to speak at different events, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm ready, but I take the opportunity. I think also as you evolve, you get into different spaces and they create different opportunities. It's not always going to feel like 100% fit. I also do know what I'm good at, and I also try to lead with bringing that to the table as well. So I think you find what your strengths are, but still get a little bit nervous before I go and speak at a big event. And I like that feeling. It means I'm challenging myself.
Yeah, true. There is also another question, and maybe Dashni, we can ask you to answer this one. It's centered around dealing with failure and setbacks rather, especially professionally. And I think it's the second person who's asking um, about dealing with setbacks professionally, academically, and how do you, maybe even speak about that in an interview.
So I think that failure and setbacks, and I don't like that word failure, but it's part of life, it's part of our careers. Um, the coach in me will tell you that failure is feedback for you. So you might not see it at the time, and it might really suck when you're in it. And sometimes you have to go through that emotion as well. But you've got to then have the self awareness to sit back and go, what went wrong there? Is this really for me? Is it really the path that I'm supposed to be on? Or is this failure or is this setback trying to tell me something different? So the first time or the only time I failed in my life was when I first wrote my board exam. And I had never ever failed before that. And to be honest, it was such a shock to my system because I had done everything the way I had done it all through my life. And it took a lot, especially when you're that young in your career, and it took a lot to sit back and go, okay, what do I need to do differently here? What actually went wrong? But like I said, you need to give yourself some time as well, because in the moment or when it's really fresh is not the time to be trying to analyze it. Give yourself some time as well, but then really give yourself some quiet time to sit back and introspect.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dashni. Rumbi, maybe you can take this one. I'll read the whole question. It says, "Good morning, everyone. I'm currently a graduate program in private markets multi-management with a master's degree in economics and no finance background. I will be finishing this year. I want to start applying for roles, but I feel unsure where to begin. What advice do you have for navigating this transition and positioning myself effectively in the investment industry?"
Okay, there's a lot that one can do in the financial service space, and it can feel like, okay, we have been emphasizing identify these 5, 10 companies, be intentional. But the reality is you do have scope to iterate towards what you want, especially if you haven't had a lot of exposure. The South African market is quite different to overseas markets where you have exposure to multiple internships, even during your academic career. Most of us actually only get those initial placements after we graduate, and that can limit how confident you are in picking the first company, the first 1 or 2 companies to work for. So given that you're a master's student, I'll start by well, first of all, there should be several company visits happening on campus, right? I'm sure you experienced that even in your undergrad, where there were multiple company visits that you embarked on, and you're able to then speak to them there. But if that is not happening on campus for whatever reason, I would recommend that you, again, as a start, look at all the companies that ABSIP is connected to, and have an assessment of, would you want to work at any of those entities? I also always encourage students that the lecturers that you have on campus, your fellow master students, even those who recently graduated, They are a wealth of information. The networking that we're talking about, guys, it doesn't just begin when you start working. Even as a student, everyone around you on campus is a part of your network, and they're all navigating the same kind of challenge, which is I'm studying or I have been a practitioner in this field. What are the right companies to work for from there? So tap into your current academic environment to get exposure to companies. But I would like you to be a bit more strategic around spending time with these actual corporates and going to career fairs. And when it comes to the first right job, I'd even say don't treat it as the first right job. Just look at the areas where you have interests and whether there are opportunities to practice one or two aspects of what you've been studying that would excite you. That way you can at least get the first right role and then iterate towards that. I'd like to hear what Ati has to say in terms of like refining the search. But for me, the big part for anyone who's a student, please tap into what your lecturers, your fellow students, and those who graduated 1 or 2 years ago, what they can do for you in terms of scanning the market.
Correct. Now, I absolutely agree with every point that Rumi had shared. Um, I think it's important again for me to outline, and I'll speak about myself from an entrepreneurship point of view. I was very specific when I went into market in terms of the types of clients that I wanted to work with, one from a value, and not treating transformation as a token exercise. I was quite clear on that because I knew then if we start, we're going to clash along the way and the journey is not going to be smooth. Because this for me is quite personal. When you talk transformation, when you talk diversity, equity, and inclusion, these organizations need to live and breathe it and not bring in black talent into organization to treat them as we've got SNA, sorry, at the top for decoration purposes and all of that. So I'm very mindful who I work with. And hence I'm saying, going back to your point, Rumbi, is that there's a mindfulness that's required. Who aligns with your values? You do your research on organizations within your field, whether you want to specialize within the investment, wealth, asset management space, or move into other sectors within the companies in South Africa and even globally for that matter of fact, because I've seen some accounting firms that have taken South African talent into the UK and into other parts of the world as well. So your appetite must be beyond, and which is something that I preach a lot, especially to young talent. Go beyond the borders of South Africa. Look into Africa, wherever they are ready for us, because also the skill set that we get in South Africa, the training from a tertiary point of view as well is of a high standard, especially when you come from reputable institutions. So you need to leverage on that and don't cap yourself into a particular location or city or country for that matter of fact. Widen your net so that you can get more opportunities. So that is very important. Research that you know what you're stepping into, because not everyone else is designed to work for a startup. Not everyone else as well is designed to work for an organization that is going through a transition. Joining, for instance, a company that's going through a restructure, because the culture when you step in is going to be something completely different. And you're going to say it's toxic, but you don't understand that there's a transition happening. So there's a lot of research in terms of who are the players. And fortunately, like Sane had mentioned earlier on, there's research, financial paperwork that is sitting on these companies' website. They're also posting what's going on in terms of activities in the company LinkedIn pages. So there's a lot of research, guys, that needs to be done. And then from there, you narrow it down and streamline. These are the people that align with my path, my journey, where I want to be in the next 10 years, 5 years or so. Whether you want to work with multinationals, global brands, there's a specificness that you need to be clear about.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering our questions and staying a little bit longer. Just in the interest of time, I'd like to ask people to ask questions directly to our speakers. They are available on LinkedIn, and perhaps we can reach out to you there if you don't mind. I would like to just hand over to Kangisa, who is our deputy chairperson within AWIF. Just for her closing comments, please don't forget to post and also just mention ABSIP Women in Focus, mention us on Instagram, mention us on LinkedIn, I probably sound like a YouTuber now, saying, please tag us, follow us for more. Yes, please follow us for more. This is the kind of content that we bring, right? Very educational, very meaningful, very useful. And it's definitely information that you can also share with others that do surround you. So over to you, Sis Kangisa.
Good morning, and thank you so much. What a fantastic moderation, Dumelo. Thank you, sis. You did fantastically. Thank you to our speakers. I see Rumbi's hand is up, and I'm thinking she wants to hand over those books to some of the winners. If that's the case, you can please switch on your mic and share your thoughts quickly. We have run over.
It's actually not about the books. We'll figure that out separately. But there were quite a few comments about interview rejection, losing hope, which are very important topics. And I know we can't get into it now, but we really do mean it when we say, please come into our LinkedIn DMs so we can help you. This is important. We cannot lose hope, right?
Correct.
Please reach out.
And we are availing ourselves as well, Kanye, to if there's an extra hour or session that we can do, maybe even a weekend, because those are key things. People are discouraged, and we need to get them excited by being back on the market and guiding them to do it well. So I'm offering myself that if we can do it again under ABSIP, that we take to deal with, because there's a lot of questions that we didn't get to. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. What a generous round of speakers. Please do clap for them as I go through our vote of thanks. Dr. Sane, thank you for your insights, and your research and your experience actually aligns with our values here at AWIF, that networking and connection is essential for women, and that is what our community is about. Bringing women together from all ages, from grassroots to executive, allowing them to have an opportunity to network, but also lift as they rise. Ati, what a fire igniter. Love your energy. Thank you for also your insights. I want to read what I wrote in my notes. Life rewards those who are intoxicated in their career, and we have the responsibility to tell the world who we are, and no one else can tell our story better than ourselves. So thank you for that brilliant reminder. Dashni, thank you so much. In fact, this conversation stemmed from some of the conversations we've had with you as one of our key sponsors, as RMB being one of our key sponsors for one of our year-end engagements. We have some events coming up, and I'll share that later with you. Dashni said, be sponsorable. Maybe that's a new word that we need to hashtag and highlight for women, and so that you can be top of mind, right? Lift your hand up to be seen. Unfortunately, in corporate is about service, and sometimes you need to be selfless and give off, but to those who matter, right? Not just your peers or people that are not going to be able to take you to the levels that you really want. So your network cannot be just the people you have lunch with or your friends. It has to be influential people who make decisions in your organization or industry. Ruby loved those call to action points, those 3 things. Definitely, if you have the right quality people in your network, you should be able to get actionable feedback when you ask them about your 3 strengths. So I do also challenge you to do that. One thing that stood out for us is you saying, understand what you're offering to the market. So you've got the qualification, you've got the personality, your own life experience almost carves a unique value proposition for wherever you go. So when you understand that, then you'll be able to have a place for yourself. So be intentional about curating your expertise for the organizations and the people you want to work with and the teams that you will work in. So thank you so much. I want to extend gratitude to our chairperson, Mbali Pejalumo. Thank you for your great support. Our AWIF executive team, you did fantastic. Tumelo, Nabila, Johanna, Bukiwe and Tapua from National, thank you so much for your incredible support and making sure that this event actually happened. This is a flagship, is an inaugural event for us. And as the speakers have ignited the fire, I think we want to go on with this and make it even an in-person event or masterclass going forward, and be able to also separate between mid-level, senior level, and executive so that people can have a wholesome experience in these types of conversations. We are having our flagship event happening in August. Our annual summit is happening on the 23rd of August. It's going to be brilliant. It's headline sponsored by 91. We're grateful for that. We have self-care with R&B in November, and it will extend from this conversation. Please share all your hashtags, your messages, and what you got out of these out of this conversation today on our AWIF socials. We are ABSIP_WIF on Instagram, and we are ABSIP Women in Focus on LinkedIn. Do tag us there. Our call to action as I close off is that please do also go onto our website to update your membership if you need to, www.connect@absip.co.za. And also be a new joiner. Tell your friends about it. This is a community that wants you to thrive in this industry, and looking forward to engaging you at our next physical event. So without keeping you further, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for a fantastic Mandela Day initiative.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.